Thanks, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we're going to do our application into prospect theory. So we did a deep dive in part 2 into the components and areas of prospect theory. And now in this section, we want to color in some of those details into some real world examples that we observe around us. This is by no means comprehensive to all the examples, but just to bring some things to life that we see every day around us, and now putting some of these terms to use and how we apply what we've learned into these settings. So the first one that you might see here is when we have sensitivity to price increases and decreases for particular products. In the United States, we really get passionate about gas prices, how much it takes to fill up a tank. And I always find this really interesting because we have a lot of people in the United States who have these really nice cars, and most people have big car payments on these cars, and they're paying on average about $700 or $800 a month just to pay off their car. But when we get a price increase of gasoline, they go nuts and they go totally crazy. So we could use that for gasoline, or if you have airline tickets, any product that you can imagine. If we have a decrease in price of, let's say, 10%. So if I'm just saying we've got $4 gas and it goes down to $3.60, everyone goes, hey, that's pretty good. Okay. We don't get, and so everyone feels good, but there's not a true good feeling that just moves down. Then, if we get an increase of 10%, if it's at 360 and it goes up 10%, I'll do the proper math, that goes up 36 cents. So now it's at 396. Now all of a sudden, everybody's really upset. So now they consider this as a loss. So now they're experiencing loss aversion. And so there's our takeaway. There's loss aversion. And then we also have a little bit of reference point dependence, where they still, once it moved down to 360, there's the new reference point, and now it's up 36 cents from their old reference point, not still down 4 cents from the original one. So we can see that playing out in a lot of different pricing mechanisms. So if you're an actual pricer of something from a business standpoint, be very careful. If you are constantly putting stuff on sale, that will become the expectation. So that means when you go back to the original pricing, people might actually interpret that as a price increase if they change their reference point. So just something to be cognizant of and aware of as we move into this application part. Next, we also have same thing with retirement contributions. So if somebody, when they start a new job, if they fail to sign up for their 401k or whatever you have, your pension or whatever in your country you have, the contribution, if that's at zero after your first paycheck, you get that first paycheck and you see that number, how much you actually get on that first paycheck. There's your first check. If you have to go increase your contribution rate after that first paycheck, you're going to experience what is called paycheck loss aversion. So you're going to be less likely to increase your retirement contributions after you receive that first paycheck, because you suddenly have that first check and you are allocating categories to that particular check. So if you want to increase this by 10%, you're giving yourself a pay decrease. And this is what causes people to stay at 0%. Even if their company is offering an employer match, this significant paycheck loss aversion is hampering their increases for contributions. All right, so we've got a couple loss aversion examples. Next, we have New York City cab drivers. So this is in a paper by Colin Kimmer at Caltech, who actually analyzed New York City cab drivers. And what he realized is cab drivers have an amount in mind that they need to earn per day. And as soon as they hit their amount, they stop working. They stop working as soon as they hit their amount. So whether that takes 16 hours or 6 hours, they work until an amount and then they quit, regardless of how long it takes them. Okay, so now what I want us to do is apply that to what we just learned in prospect theory. So what kind of terms pop up that you're identifying now? So in my mind, and there's not 100% right or wrong answer on all of this, but the couple things that jump out to me is first, there's a reference point dependence. So they're very dependent on what that target number is going to be. And then there's also a little bit of loss aversion. So if you're digging into that 14th, 15th, and 16th hour, instead of just calling it quits, going home, it's not your day, they say, no, I've got to reach this. Otherwise, I would consider this a loss. Conversely, what if they have a good day and it only took them 6 hours, instead of really cashing in on the fact that it's a busy day and they're making a lot of money, they packed up and go home early. So they feel good that they made more than their target or right at their target, but they may have left extra money on the table from that. So loss aversion and reference point dependence. So speaking of both of these, we actually have a couple of behaviors that we found in the betting markets. So if you go to horse racing, you get to see a lot of this bad behavior play out right in front of you. And it's really interesting to watch as long as you're not participating very much in it, which is me. I don't do that very much. And so we're going to talk about what is called this favorite long shot bias. Favorite and long shot bias. So what we see here is the favorite has a tendency of being underpriced, and the long shot has a tendency of being overpriced. Okay, so what's going on here? The long shot has a tendency of being overpriced. So first of all, I want you to think about the emotional component of this. So if you bet on a long shot, you're basically putting up a little bit of money in order to make a large sum. There's a low probability that sounds like the lottery that we talked about in our risk-seeking behavior. But that's what we tend to do. And because so many people are building these bets on the long shot, the actual probability is way lower than what we're actually betting. So they're very overpriced. Meanwhile, the favorite is boring because you're putting up a lot of money for a little gain. And there's not a lot of emotional excitement if the favorite actually wins. The only thing from an emotional standpoint is negative. If it happens to lose, you lose a lot of money very quickly. And so this actually tends to be underpriced because of that. So the sensible economic way to bet on horses is hammer the favorite and stay away from the long shots. And so once again, this long shot bias is showing that we overweigh low probabilities. Couple that with the fact that we like the shortcut, we like lotteries, and we like to make a lot of money in a short amount of time with a short amount of money. And then also feeling smart if it actually hits, all adds to this favorite long shot bias. And then what we notice at the end of the day, if we're to do all these races, at the end of the day, we have this end of the day effect. End of the day effect. And this is where the favorite long shot bias gets even more amplified, where the long shots are overpriced, favorites are underpriced. And what happens is people who have lost money throughout the night gambling on horses try to make up all of their lost money in that last race. So at the end of the day, in order to get their money back, the most efficient, not the most efficient way, but the quickest way is to go with the long shot. So everybody pumps up that price, makes it more overpriced, and most people at the end of the day walk away with zero. So usually I do this in my classes. In each class, each section is around $30. And what I do with each class is I'll give them each $10 and I'll tell them to bet on 3 horses. And we do a little horse simulation in class. And I expect if I'm giving 30 people $10 each, means I'm endowing them with $300. And we let it play out. And of course, all these things take place, end of the day effect. And usually what I see at the end of this is roughly, and I'm being generous, about half of the money that I give actually comes back and people still have it. Everybody else has lost it. And most of I want to say between 60 and 75% of all the individuals have $0. And once again, those are low estimate. I'm being pretty generous with that. And so you can see this playing out. Also, if we see a long shot that actually wins, people go, I have a fear of missing out. That's FOMO. And you'll see the next race, people will actually buy up that long shot even more. And that's what we call the recency effect, where we tend to remember the most recent things. And we also feel like we missed out. So we bet on that long shot even more. You can learn more about the recency effect in our next course, which is going to do a deep dive into biases and heuristics. So look forward to seeing that. You're just seeing a glimpse called the recency effect. When we come back, we have one final video, and that is our last example of prospect theory, and it's called the disposition effect. And I'll see you on that next video. Thanks.